Sons of Kryos.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Judd.
And this is the Sons of Kryos.
Yes, or as Jared would say, Sons of Kryos.
I'm going to put that in before this.
I'll say awesome.
So now, yes, there you go.
That's fantastic.
So welcome to our 5th show.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been a while now.
Maybe at 10 we'll have a little party or something.
Fantastic.
So tonight we are going to talk about a few things. A friend of ours, Luke Crane, came into town and ran a game demo. We're going to be talking about using published worlds.
Talk about something that I'm not very good at, ending games, getting that closure, bringing it all together. And we're going to talk about a game of Cat that Jeff ran, one of the first games that we've run with our Gen Con swag. So that's good.
And we're going to talk a little bit about some things that Judd and I need to get off our chest. And we'll wrap it up with talking about some upcoming events.
Sounds good. Let's get right to it. So Luke Burning Wheel Crane visited us this weekend in Ithaca. He has friends, I believe his girlfriend's parents live in the area.
Yep.
And he jaunts down to Ithaca every once in a while. Also, our local gaming store, Odyssey Games, really makes an effort to carry indie published games, which is really cool. So I know that store has sold a bunch of copies of Burning Wheel and the Monster Burner, which is nice. So he knew Odyssey Games even without having known us.
And I also saw Luke, drop off a few copies of Jihad.
Ooh.
So if you are interested in that, you can go down to Odyssey and pick that up.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So he and I had lunch together because we wanted to talk about a project that he and I are working on together, which I will get to when it looks like when it's more solid. I'll mention it on the show. Until then, I just feel like I'm jinxing it, even though I already mentioned it. And most people who listen to this already know what it is. But who cares? I'm not going to bring it up yet. I feel like I'm superstitious. Don't want to jinx it. But he ran a demo.
Yeah, Luke ran a demo called The Gift, which is basically a two-sided setup of one side is elves and the other side is dwarfs. One from each of those parties is a prince, and it's kind of set up where the elves are coming to the dwarven hold to renew ties, to give their offerings of I don't know, some sort of presentation to the dwarven prince who just recently became the prince.
What I really like about Luke's con scenarios is they're very iconic, and they really are saying something about the fantasy worlds that we take for granted. So in the elves and the dwarves game, it's really, why don't elves and dwarves get along? Let's really take a good hard look at that. And the players will realize why while playing it out at the table, which is cool. Just like Poisonous Ambition is about, why don't orcs rule the world? Well, they're too busy backstabbing each other. So in the Gift, you really get a good idea of why these two species haven't hit it off in the literature that they're presented in.
It's funny you should mention that, because in the very first scene, 3 of the 4 dwarfs failed their greed rolls.
Right.
And decided that the elf prince's armor was something they just had to have.
Yes.
So that was kind of the motivation for the entire evening.
I bet.
We had 8 players, so it was a full
table.
Yeah. And both of the prince characters and everybody else there was just right on.
What was the resolution? What ended up happening?
Well, the elves pretty much decided that the dwarves were not very polite.
Mm-hmm.
The dwarves tried to do everything they could to get the armor.
Rock on.
One of the elves was very worried that the elves were trying to be sneaky about something, not the armor. And it was kind of this contest between, who could push the other group around. It never really went exactly that way, but it was a motivation for both sides. In the end, there was a treaty signed by the dwarfs that basically tied them to having good relations with the elves, and it was all resolved through a duel of wits.
Nice.
But
so sometimes I've been in that game twice, and I've ran it once. And sometimes it's a duel of wits, and sometimes it's just a full-out brawl. And it's fun either way.
Yeah, nobody died in this one.
Okay.
I was surprised, though. I thought it would come to it a few times.
You need that player who's just gutsy enough to push it and just do it. Try to take a shot at somebody.
Yeah.
So
it was the first time for a few of these players at the table with Burning Wheel,
mm-hmm.
and it was a lot of fun for me. I've played Burning Wheel several times before in the demos at the conventions, as well as in your weekly game, Judd.
Mm-hmm.
But it is always a pleasure when I get to play it with Luke.
Yeah.
It's something special when you get to play a game with the person who actually created it.
That's fun.
And I know a lot of people that I've talked to out there really seemed interested in the idea because they could sit at the table, and if they didn't understand something, they could ask
right.
Him and really get
the full answer.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Not just the what, but the why.
Exactly.
Nice.
So
That's
it was
cool.
a good game.
Yeah, if you're at a con and you get to run in a scenario with Luke, definitely go for it.
Absolutely.
He is a rockin' GM. I had a bad experience with a games writer at a con running his own game, and I was kind of off to the idea until I met Luke 10 years later. I'm not going to name names of who I didn't have such a good time with, but I realized that just because you write a game doesn't mean you necessarily are good at running it. But Luke definitely has both skills, and it's nice. It's a lot of fun. Those scenarios are set up to go.
Excellent.
Yeah. What next? What's next on the agenda, Jeff? You've got it in front of you.
I think we should talk a little bit about using published worlds and kind of taking them and making them your own.
Cool.
I know you have a pretty good opinion on this one.
Yeah. I don't use published worlds that often, but when I have, there are a couple of things I think you need to do right off the bat, and that is I think the players need to be bought in. If the players aren't into it, if they're not into the idea of the world, then you need to find something else. When I am starting a new game, I like to put forth 2, 3, 4 ideas and just see what the players gravitate towards. I want that connection where they look at it, either they look at the cover of the book or they read a paragraph and they say, "Oh, this is the game I want to play." So I want that player buy-in. I want that connection. And then I think after that, it's just a matter of carving out your niche in the world. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's Waterdeep. I want you to make your own neighborhood of Waterdeep, or take a neighborhood that's in the book and make it your own. I know when I ran Midnight with JJ, what we did is we took this one family that was mentioned, the Esben family, and they kind of fascinated both of us. And JJ was an Esben. He was this dark, cursed family that had turned to the dark side before, the evil of that world had even won. This family had gone over. And it was neat. It really made the game ours, and it made the game world feel like ours. It made us feel like made us felt less like we were playing in someone else's sandbox, which is the worst gaming feeling ever. You want to make it feel like you're in your own turf.
It's also really tough for a game master when you're playing in somebody else's setting, and especially when there's so much of it. I mean, how can you remember all the details?
Right.
And you don't necessarily have all the books on it. One of your players may have read something and come up with something that you just didn't catch. That can be troublesome.
It can. I hogwash to that. I just if I haven't read it and we haven't decided as a group that we should definitely use this, then I don't want anybody double guessing what's going on at the table. I just can't stand that. So yeah, what happens on the table is gospel, and everything else is debatable. I think when when you're using a published world, what you really want to do is make it yours and make it so that the player, what's going on at the table, is the novel, is the movie, is the big deal going on in that world. Those are the kind of games I like to run. I think those are the games that players I play would like to play. And I think when using a published world, you have to put your stamp on it. You have to brand it as yours.
Well, I remember the last time I ran a published world, it was Forgotten Realms, and I had talked to you quite extensively beforehand about doing it.
Oh, yeah. I think I had really radical advice for that.
Yes. You suggested, actually, that I crucify Elminster.
Yes, I did.
And I did it.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did it, and it was a shock to my players.
Good.
It had a really profound effect on the game. It was a lot of fun. I was glad I did it.
Awesome.
Good suggestion.
I'd forgotten that email conversation happened. That's right. Jeff lived in Louisiana for a long time. So for a long time, we had actually emailed more words back and forth than we had actually spoken. We were better friends online than we had been in person. And yeah, that was great. I'm glad that worked out. I think that was definitely my way of saying this ain't the Forgotten Realms you've got at home on your shelf. This is our Forgotten Realms now. You know, I've crucified the icon of Forgotten Realms, and now it's ours. And that's cool. Awesome. So what did they do? Like, what was the game? Was that the kicker of the game?
Well, no, that wasn't the kicker of the game. But they found Elminster's body. He was crucified near his tower, and there was kind of this folklore curse going around about it that basically that he was put up there by some very dark power.
Of course. And what the heck could crucify him? You seen the stats on that mofo?
And they were this dark god was so upset at Elminster that, they said that there would be a curse put upon anyone that removed him from the cross. Nice. So the players, first thing, took him down from the cross.
Good.
And buried him.
Very nice.
So yeah, I mean, it gave me something to work with, and it was neat for them. They got to give
last rites over Elminster.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Rock and roll. And I love the drama behind who could do that. What power? You'd have to be something ferocious to be able to do that to a character of that stature. Great. That's awesome.
Yep. So let me ask you this, Judd. Do you have any suggestions for people who are looking at like box sets, like Forgotten Realms or anything like that? Let's say you're new to game mastering, and you go into your gaming store, your local gaming store or bookstore or whatever, and like you don't really have that much to go with. You see the Forgotten Realms book and the Eberron book,
right?
What do you suggest?
My suggestion is to carve out your niche in that world and make it yours and your players. And then when you branch out, I think what you'll find is that as you expand out into the world, the players are more comfortable and they feel like it's theirs. I want that feeling of ownership and that feeling of this is our world. This isn't somebody else's. Once somebody writes a game world and puts it out, it's done. I mean, it no longer. I mean, it's their intellectual property. I wouldn't say it wasn't. But game worlds are meant to be messed up and toyed with, and cities shall fall, and it'll rain blood, and it's got to be big. So I like that. What I want you to do is own it. You spent the $20 or more on it. Own the book, and own it at the table. More importantly, with your players, along with your players. I want everybody at that table to feel like they own real estate in that world, and that they're entitled to make changes. I know when I've run my own soon-to-be published world, the Dictionary of Mu. At the end of every one-shot I run of that, every con scenario, that world is rocked. A city is destroyed. Major NPCs are laid waste. So, major PC, players playing major NPCs. It's just great. So I want that. I want destruction and apocalypse and creation and something absolutely new coming out of it.
So when you're playing Lord of the Rings RPG, hit Frodo over the head, grab the ring, and run?
Something. I mean, if I was going to run, it's a good point. If I was going to run a Lord of the Rings campaign, I think that would be really problematic for me. The way I would deal with it is I would have some kind of, I would get real funky, and I would say that there are different ways that the war went in different Middle Earths, and that there are various Middle Earths. I'd take like a Alan Moore top 10 view on it, like a Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I would have them go into different Middle Earths where different people took the ring and ran with it and became. I would have one Middle Earth.
Like Sliders?
Yeah, very much like Sliders. I would have one Middle Earth where Galadriel took it and became the Dark Queen that she took about. I'd have one where Frodo just disappeared and became like a second Gollum. I'd have one where where Gandalf took it in the that one scene where he's thinking about it. I'd have one where Boromir took it and led his people. I would want to do something so different so that the players. Because, man, that's a well-documented world. I mean,
Judd, that sounds awesome, man. You're inspiring me.
We could Burning Wheel, and I would use Burning Wheel to do it. But yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Okay. Well, I think we talked enough about that. Shall we move on?
Yeah. We just talked about something that's one of my strengths, which is world building. Now I think we're going to talk on something that's one of Jeff's strengths and one of my weaknesses, which is ending games, finding closure. I'm not good at this.
It's something that's really important. The longer that I've been gaming, the more important I think it is.
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of groups over the years, and usually what happens is I hop in with a group,
right,
and I play with them for a while, and for some reason the game ends. But it's not usually like an in-game thing. It's more of like the players need to,
their schedule changes. Right.
Their schedules change. We've all been there.
I think this is a myth. The reason why the never-ending game, I think, has started is because there's this myth that we're going to start at first level. We all have D&D kind of trained into us,
right?
Or I do. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I have D&D trained into me, and there's this myth in D&D that you're going to start at first level and take it all the way to 20th,
right?
And it's going to be this long-spanning deal. And that would take a long time if you're going XP for XP. That's a lot of orcs.
Yeah.
In your way. So I love the idea of closure and mini campaigns. So talk more, Jeff. How do I end my game? How do I bring it to closure?
Well, I think that first of all, it's really important to have the right start of a game.
Right.
I think that really good game masters probably could just start anywhere in a game and end it nicely. But personally, I've always found that I start off with a good story, and I kind of project, where it goes in the middle, and then it ends at some point with something, that has to do with the kicker, basically.
Right.
So, for example, I ran a superhero game recently.
And it just ended.
I ran the game probably about every other week for a little over a year.
Wow.
And as it got near what I was hoping to be the end, two of my players had to move out of the state. So I said to them, let's really try and end it before you leave, and that didn't happen. So there had been talk for quite a while about them coming back and me wrapping up the game.
Mm-hmm.
And, a little more than a year from the last time we played, they came back here, and I got to run the final game. To talk a little bit about the setup is all of the characters started off knowing each other. This world is, if you've ever seen the comic
Rising
Stars, that was my inspiration for this game. So all of the super people in the world grew up together, and their kicker was that they were trying to find one of their own who had kind of gone off the radar.
Mm-hmm.
So when they found him, they found out that he was involved with some stuff, and somebody was trying to hire him to kill one of the most powerful super people.
Okay.
And the players worked with him and got him to see what was going on, and he didn't end up killing the other guy. But the story went on and on and on, and the very last game, the character that he was trying to assassinate eventually became like the bad guy, and the players had seen him as like the biggest, most important good guy.
Right.
And their interactions with him in the last game session turned him into a bad guy.
Wow.
So they ended the game by killing the super person that they admired the most.
That's interesting.
And with his death, like in the comic book Rising Stars, the powers spread to the rest of the superheroes that are left. So with his death, something more passed on.
Right.
And they kind of ended there because the rest of their kind were willing to work together, and they, kind of moved on into the future.
Neat.
So, and that's where I ended it. And it was, I mean,
I
hope that it was the end game that I dreamed it would be.
Right.
And
it seemed like it. You were pretty pumped when you got back from that game.
Yeah, a lot of my players told me that they really enjoyed it. I had one player who was saying that they were almost crying during the middle of it.
Nice.
I've actually had players cry in some of those game sessions before, which is like amazing.
Yeah.
Tabletop game, somebody crying over something, that rocks. So, yeah.
Good. It sounds like they were all really invested.
I think it's.
So your advice, basically, just breaking it down, your advice for ending games is to have it. Not have an end of the game. It would be impossible to figure out what the end of that game would have been at the first game. But to find the end of the game in the beginning, to say like, all right, what has this game been about? Let's end it with that.
To have an idea of what's going on and kind of project a path. I mean, obviously your players are going to be doing whatever and totally throw you off, but you can change, your idea as they continue on down the path.
I think a lot of the best games ask a question, like Luke's one-shot, to bring it back to that. I mean, why don't orcs rule the world for Poisonous Ambition? Why don't elves and dwarves get along? Right. So what would be the question that you think was behind this superhero game? Like, what makes a hero or what makes a villain? Or
Boy, I think it's more of what is it worth?
Oh, nice.
What is this power worth to you? You have all this. Is this power worth the responsibility?
Right.
Or if you have the responsibility, are you willing to take it?
Right.
That's a lot. And a lot of them ended up doing things, that they didn't expect.
Now, my other question is, you were using a tweaked version of Aberrant, right?
Right,
okay.
Of Aberrant. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of tweaking systems as well.
Right.
So, and I didn't use their world at all, but it was something. The White Wolf system, was something that the players that I had all knew very well.
Right.
So it was very easy to work with. And there were a couple of things, that I added in that made it, mine. One of which is something I use called a BS flag, which I'm sure some of you have heard of players saying, oh, it's BS, whatever. So one of my players in a game a long time ago, brought it up several times. So my wife made these little flags that have BS written on them.
Uh-huh.
So I give them to the players and I say, you can use these to force someone to make a reroll.
Nice.
Be it me or one of the other players, yourself or whatever.
So it gives them some authorship in the game, really.
Right. And they can also use them at the end of the game as like an XP award to somebody else.
Oh.
So they can say, hey, Judd, what you did was really, really cool. Here's
I really like
here's
that.
My BS flag.
That's really nice.
Yep.
That reminds me a lot of fan mail in Primetime Adventures. When you read Primetime Adventures, you will see. That's really cool. And you'd never read? Have you read Primetime Adventures? You played it once a long time ago.
I did play it once.
But BS flags in your BS flags predated that. You hadn't read it. You hadn't read it. That's cool. You will
about 2 years before I came back here.
When you read Primetime Adventures, Jeff, you'll see a bit of BS flagship in the thing called fan mail. I think that's really cool. That's a great mechanic. Very nice.
It was a lot of fun. The players really enjoyed it, and they loved
bet.
to be able to wave their flag and say, BS, BS!
Right. Nice. All right. And you ran another game recently. You ran a game you bought at Gen Con called Cat.
Yeah, actually, it was the first time I've run Cat, and I was really excited about it. You talked to me about it a few times, and I picked it up at Gen Con, like you said, and it just really caught my eye and inspired me. So you had also come up with like a list of NPCs for a possible cat game.
Yep, I just wanted to. When I run cat, I call it Mythic Suburbia because it's just like the neighborhood you grew up in and all the little magical things that when you were 12 you knew were there, but they're really there, and you get to see them on four legs, which is great. And I just wrote a list, and then you added to it.
And it inspired me more. I mean, it kind of gave me, this platform, and I could say, oh, wow, this works. This is going to be pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
And the system is really simple. So I asked 6 players to come, and the majority of which were female, and only one of the players was male.
Oh, wow.
So it was the first time I had a game that was mostly women players.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever had that. That's great.
So I asked the players to make up cats,
mm-hmm.
and there were the majority of which played cats that they just made up. And 2 of my players had cats that they were playing cats that they had owned or knew.
Okay.
And an interesting thing to point out is I found out that throughout the game that the players who were playing cats that they knew
mm-hmm.
were much more active. They didn't really have to think about what their cat was going to do because they reacted like they knew their cat would.
That's really interesting.
So that went really well. There was some interesting.
Cool. You have to make sure you're playing the right cat, because I have a cousin who has a cat that just hides in the closet all day. So you wouldn't want to play that cat. But if you have an active cat, that would be a good PC.
Absolutely.
You don't want to just say, "Oh, I'm still hiding in the closet."
No,
that wouldn't be much fun. It wouldn't be much fun. But cool.
So
and your wife played.
Yeah,
too.
my wife actually, my wife played in it, which is the first tabletop game that I've run that she's played in for years.
Oh.
There's a little bit of a story about that.
Yes, I'm going to dig that story out. Jeff, why hasn't your wife gamed with you for years? Tell us the sordid tale.
Well, when we first moved to Fort Polk,
mm-hmm.
I met some gamers there.
Yeah.
Most of them were soldiers.
Right.
And I played in a couple of games with them, nothing really major. And eventually I talked to them, and they wanted me to run a Vampire the Masquerade game.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to, and it was the first game I ran for this crew.
Right.
And my wife wanted to play in it, or I asked her to, but
okay.
So she played in it, and I would say that probably within the first 45 minutes, her character was removed from the game.
Oh my goodness! You whacked your wife's character?
Kinda.
Uh-huh.
There are some circumstances that
she wrote. I have a bunch of notes from her because I interviewed her about it, and she wrote a 3-page history for this character.
I think it was more like one double-sided.
Well, whatever.
But it was a lot. Certainly.
Yeah.
She put a good amount of work into the character, and that was one of the reasons why I was so excited to have her play in it. Whoa, phone's ringing.
It's one of our many callers.
Oh, maybe we'll do a call-in show.
That'd be good. Yeah.
So, yeah, she played in it, and in the first 45 minutes, I would say she was removed. But the rest of the players, she was a little upset, I'll admit.
She didn't game with you for years after that.
No, she didn't. And at the table, she kind of got up and she just kind of
left.
Was upset and left. And the rest of my players at the table were kind of like, "Oh my God, he just
whacked his own wife,
offed his wife's character."
Did you feel that you had more cred at the table because they were just fearful of your GMing?
Perhaps, but let me state that was not my intent.
Uh-huh.
My intent was not to kill off my wife's character
to
prove to them that I was a hard ass. But I'm sure it looked that way, and I know it looked that way to her.
Now, here's another interesting thing about this game. The players were really playing rough and tumble vampires. They were just playing mean, non-heroic, not even anti-heroic, not really heroic in any way.
Well, yeah.
And your wife was playing a heroic vampire.
Yes.
And after that, all bets were off. Like, when you whacked her, the game just went spiraling into unheroism.
I don't
and
know,
villainy.
I don't know if that was the exact catalyst, but I mean, they were. I wouldn't say they were more violent than other vampire players I've been with, because I don't think they were. But it was interesting to me to note that the majority of the people that I played with were medics, like in the real world,
army medics.
Army medics,
sometimes with combat experience.
Right, and their characters were, were not so nice.
They were working out issues, dude.
Yeah, probably.
They were definitely working. I mean, everybody works out issues at the table on some level or another, but it's best when it's spoken somehow. But yeah, they were definitely working out some violence issues and doing it at the vampire table, especially Masquerade, where you had that humanity mechanic, kind of policing, but not really well. And
I ended up actually removing the humanity mechanic because the players and I just could not agree on their humanity stat.
Wow.
I was saying that they, were much lower than they thought they were.
That's interesting.
And it was just it was a matter of perspective, and I thought that the humanity stat restricted me and the game too much by saying, look, this is how humane you are, and you're going to suffer for it, because in the White Wolf system,
the old White Wolf system,
the Masquerade, players couldn't use as much of their dice pool like during the day and in other circumstances. So they felt that they were, being penalized for being vampires. So eventually I just kind of said, look, I'm going to do away with the humanity stat and play your character however the hell you want to play your character.
Right.
And I changed it into a beast stat that basically the more they let go, the more they lost their temper and frenzied, the higher their beast stat got. So that was instead of it being how humane are you, it was how much of a beast are you.
Interesting.
So that ended up working really well.
Let's bring this back to Cat a little bit. So you played Cat, and it was and it worked. The game was cool.
Yeah, the game was great. My wife had a really fun time.
Good.
She was very creative. All of the players were just really creative. One of the players who came to the table hates cats. Does not like them at all.
Oh, wow.
And he was coming expecting to play a D20 game that I run. And I told everybody, but I didn't get a hold of him, that I might be running something else. So he showed up and he was kind of like, I don't know about this. And he ended up playing it, and he really liked it.
Nice.
And he said later on, I had a really good time, and I'm surprised. So that was great.
Nice. Any good use of cat magic at the table?
Not that I recall. There were a couple of times where the cats used it to get through doors.
Right.
And that was really important, I thought, because there were a couple of times where they felt they didn't have any other options.
Right.
So it got them around some problems where they were stuck.
Good.
And
as it was meant to, I would imagine.
Yeah, it worked out really well. So
very nice.
Great game.
Yeah. Excellent. It is a great game. I ran it with elementary school kids, and I ran it with my girlfriend and a couple of other friends, and it's just a splendid game. I mean, the elementary school kids took to it fast. They got it. And we played like a little 2-hour game, and it was just fantastic. They were kittens who were to be given as gifts to a kid, and they were like in a box, and they had to claw their way out of the box or meow their way out, and they were really good problem solvers. I found that the kid, there were 2 boys in the group who wanted to just claw their way out of the box and like shred it, and they failed their rolls. They didn't roll very well. And then this one little girl made up a cute like fuzzy cat, and she said, "I want to meow and get someone's attention to help me out of the box." Which is like,
nice.
Intense role-playing. I mean, that's really... A lot of people who've been gaming for years wouldn't think to do that. Right. They wouldn't think that they had that kind of power. And I thought it was fantastic. And I had her roll, and she got someone's attention who opened the box for them. It was fantastic. I was really, really excited to see this little, 3rd-grade girl just really get role-playing for first time out. Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good game. I think it's if you want to get non-gamers into gaming, especially kids, I think it's a great, great game. I ran a bunch of 3rd through 5th graders on it. It was just splendid. So good stuff. Yay Cat. Yay Wicked Dead. Yay John Wick. Yay.
So let's move on now
Yep.
to getting some stuff off of our chest here.
Absolutely. I think you're the one who really suggested this segment, so maybe you should start it up.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that in actually quite a lot of the games and gaming events that happen here, players will commit to the event or
Right.
game,
Right.
and then not show up last minute. They won't call. They just no show.
Right. No call, no show.
No call, no show.
Which would get them canned at work.
And it's frustrating as a game master.
Right.
Especially if you are a game master who really works your players' characters into your stories.
Mm-hmm. That makes it impossible.
Yeah. So I mean, if you have key players or any players that don't show up, it throws a wrench in the gears.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to quote a specific instance?
I don't think I want to do that.
You don't? All right, I will.
Okay.
At the first Get Your Geekonathon, Jeff offered to run Vampire the Reckoning. Requiem. Whoops. Vampire the Requiem. And
I can see he plays that one a lot.
Yeah, whatever. So he got a full boat of people signed up for the game, and none of them showed. Not one. Which is frustrating. And I think... And I went online, and I was peeved. I went on to the Get Your Geekonathon forum at www.ithacagamers.com, and I lost I didn't lose my temper totally, but I said, hey, all you guys who are in this game, you owe Jeff an apology. And I expected it either to be posted here on this forum or emailed to him personally. And did you ever get any apologies?
No, not that I recall, but
I
didn't expect any.
I find at the Get Your Geekonathons, too, we get a lot of people who... The game is supposed to start at noon. I think that's a pretty reasonable time to start. And I'd like to start at noon.
Yeah.
And there are other people waiting, and people come, 20 minutes, half hour late. And it's a little frustrating. It's frustrating when a lot of trouble has been gone into. The GMs for that game work hard to get those games prepped. And, all the player has to do is show up on time. And especially when it's Odyssey games, you could call Odyssey and say, hey, I'm running late. There's nothing wrong with running late. What's wrong is expecting other people to be at your leisure and be waiting, as if they live to wait on you hand and foot. That's frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
I hear you.
If people listen to this one, just, give a call. I mean, we all people, we all have lives. We all have things to do. And stuff happens. We all know that. So if you call and just let your game masters or event coordinators know that something's come up and that you can't make it, that would be a big help.
And I'll take this a step further, and I'll say, if you're a gamer out there who has the same problem, game with people who have a similar politeness as you do. I know that's really easy for me to say in like the gaming utopia that is Ithaca, because I could game. I mean, I know dozens of gamers. I'm really lucky, but it just isn't worth the emotional garbage to just game with people who aren't as polite as you are. That's all there's to it.
I have to give like a big thank you here for my old group in Fort Polk, because playing with soldiers again, these guys were always on time unless something came up and they did call.
Nice.
But they're used to it. 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, they
military
were there.
Precision, baby.
And that was great. So guys, if you listen to this, thank you. It was great.
In the age of cell phones, the Burning Wheel group, the weekly group, is getting better at that.
Yes.
Javon calls, and everybody calls when they're going to be late, and that's really nice. As do I. I've had times when I've had to call and say, hey, I'm running a little late. So, yeah, that's the rant. I'm sure everybody understands where that's coming from. I think most people have had that instance come up. So, good. Be polite. Game with people who are similar politeness to you.
Yep. And call if you can, please.
And there are some events coming up. Let's talk about that.
Right. Get Your Geekonathon.
Yep,
number 4.
Yep, October 15th.
October 15th.
From noon to 8. We've got a bunch of people signed up already. We've got a bunch of open spots still left open. So I've been sending out emails like crazy.
Got some great games.
Yeah, it looks good. We've got I'm running Burning Wheel, which is just about full. I could take on more players, but I'd kind of like to keep it as it is. If we have spillover, I'll take up to a dozen and run a ridiculously big game, and we'll see how I handle one of those big ones. So yeah, I'm running Burning Wheel with the Jihad setting, which is Luke's politically charged space opera setting, which absolutely rocks. And Jeff is running Cat, which is nice. You've got a couple people signed up for that already.
Yep, there are a couple of people, and it's going to be the scenario that I ran here with my wife and friends. But
a local gamer named John is running a D20 Urban Arcana game that has an interesting political bent to it. I really liked it. It's really neat. You've got to read his write-up. It's kind of cool. So it's modern day. It takes place around election time in the Urban Arcana world. Ooh. It's good. It looks really neat. John always runs games that are filled to the brim because he runs D20 ideas that rock. I think last time he ran Iron Kingdoms D20. This time he's running Urban Arcana. I expect another great... I mean, if you want to see what D20 looks like when it's run by an anthropologist, play in John's game. It's really neat.
Huh.
Yeah.
I have to go over his post in the forum and check that out a little more.
Yeah, it's neat. And then our other game is a gentleman named Robert, who is running a GURPS fantasy game. And it's very traditional. It's, you're a party who is guarding a caravan, and the merchant, I think the merchant is a potter, and he left you behind in the town, and the town isn't what it seems. And it's nice to have a very traditional game in the midst of all of these kind of zany ideas, in the midst of the cat and the jihad and the political D20. So
we've got a good spread there.
It's a nice spread. I like that it's we've got GURPS, we've got some D20, got some Burning Wheel, got some Cat. That's nice. That's a nice array of games. I'm very pleased with it as usual.
And please pre-register.
Yeah, pre-register. You can go to Odyssey Games and pre-register there, or you can go to the forums at www.ithacagamers.com, and you'll see the Get Your Geek On-a-thon forums right there, and all the games have a thread, much like the nerdnyc.com game days and recess days do, and you just sign on up right there. You don't even have to register. You can just sign up and say, hey, I'm Joe, and I'd like to game. So, very fun.
Yeah. There's also Unicon.
That's in Rochester,
In Rochester, yep. Coming up in... Boy, I want to say it's in December.
It is December.
Yeah.
It's December 10th or 11th, I think.
I'm not going to say. I don't know for sure. There is a link on the Ithaca Gamers forum for it if you go to the convention section. So check it out there. But it is something I went to last year. Mm-hmm. It's not Gen Con, but it's cool. There are a lot of gamers there, a lot of war gamers. So if you're into wargaming, go there. A lot of Warhammer.
Nice.
And there's just tons of that. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of LARPing, some RPG, and there's a small dealers area. But they did it well. It's a nice setup.
I've never been to that con before.
Yeah, I went there and walked around and checked out stuff, and I went with Ken, who runs the Heroes Trek,
mm-hmm.
and we went around as orcs for a little while.
Oh, nice.
It was really nice. So if you have an opportunity this year to check that out, I will probably be there. So maybe I'll do some interviews up there if I can, or if Judd, you go with me, and we'll do some interviews.
That'd be fun. And the other gaming event that's happening this winter that we will both be attending, I believe, is Dreamation, which is in late January, and it's in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And I'm
really looking forward to this.
Yeah, we're going to be crashing with my buddy Rob, and I'll probably be running a couple games. And it just looks like a lot of fun.
Now this one's a lot more tabletop role-playing stuff, isn't it?
Yes. When I've gone to Dreamation in the past, Rob actually, it's interesting, Rob has more fun at Dreamation, he says, than he did at Gen Con.
Really?
Yeah, because it's just a lot more solid gaming. I mean, it's just, the indie RPG guys at the Forge have a really solid outpost there, and just a lot of solid, I game 8 to 12 hours a day when I'm there. So that's a lot of gaming. I played Mountain Witch for the first time there. I played just tons of really great games at those cons. So, I played Lacuna with Jared Sorensen, and nice. Just solid stuff. I can't say enough good things about Dreamation. And they really treat their GMs, particularly the indie guys, but I'm sure they treat everybody really well.
Oh, great.
Really, really fun stuff. So
we're really going to try and get some interviews there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps it up.
Yeah, I think we've brought it to a close.
There's a few things we have to talk about left, though. First of all, we have to tell you that we have a Cafe Press store.
Yeah, if you want a Sons of Cryo shirt that says awesome.
Definitely.
We've got that up there. And I think there's a bag and a mug and all the usual Cafe Press dreck that goes into a Cafe Press store.
Yeah.
And I think we get a couple cents on the dollar if you buy something, so you'll be supporting
I think we marked it up $1 or $2, something like that.
Don't tell them that, dude. You're not supposed to say that. So yeah, we've got a Cafe Press store. The link is on the site, so check it out. And our email is sonsofcryos@yahoo.com. Be careful how you spell it. I always spell it wrong when I try to sign in. sonsofcryos@yahoo.com.
That's all one word, folks.
One big word. sonsofcryos@yahoo.com. And we've gotten a lot of kind words. I've had people PM me at rpg.net, at nerdnyc.com, at The Forge. People have emailed, and that's really cool. I'm really psyched to see people just listening and commenting. That's really nice of you. So thank you very much.
Feedback is very appreciated. If you think that we're great, if you think that we suck, let us know.
Absolutely.
It's cool.
If there's something you think we're neglecting, hit us with it. If there's an issue you'd like to see us address, email us and let us know. I think that we take requests. So
absolutely.
Let us know. And thank you very much for listening.